Hello everyone, this is Serious Trivia, and today we're continuing the 4th Kingdom of Yen Let's Talk Lore series with episode 6 titled Kingdom of Yen. Now in our last episode, we ended as Guan Qiujian persuaded Emperor Cao Rui to finally make the move against Gongsun Yuan as the Wei army set out in 236 for their first campaign against Liaodong. While this would also be Guan Qiujian's first military campaign, he made ample preparations as his first objective was to win over the support of potential allies for Gongsun Yuan as the nomadic Wuhuan tribes in Youbeiping and Liaoxi were dealt with and then levied into the Wei army. Then contact was made with 5,000 descendants of Yuan Shang's original army, as they were also conscripted to fight against the clan that had executed their former leader. But even with these new allies, Guan Qiujian hoped to avoid an all-out siege against Gongsun Yuan at Liaodong's capital of Xiangping, as it would surely be a costly and difficult battle. So instead, Guan Qiujian hoped to trick Gongsun Yuan into leaving Xiangping by leveraging his position as the new prefect of the You province with a simple court summon. Now naturally, Gongsun Yuan would never answer a court summon if it required him to leave Liaodong, even if it's from his new boss Guan Qiujian. But Guan Qiujian thought it might be possible if he were to set the meeting place close enough to Gongsun Yuan. Thus the city of Liaosui was selected, as it was just west of Xiangping. Initially, this plan worked, as Gongsun Yuan agreed to the meeting. But knowing that Gongsun Yuan would surely not come alone, especially given how careful he was with the previous imperial envoy, Guan Qiujian's real challenge was going to be how to sneak such a large army across the Liao River in order to lay an ambush big enough to take down Gongsun Yuan's guards outside of Liaosui. And here's where the plan fell apart, as Gongsun Yuan's scouts soon discovered Guan Qiujian's army crossing the Liao River. Now sensing real danger, Gongsun Yuan responded by marching his entire army to Liaosui, as the two armies now stood face to face. Losing his element of surprise, Guan Qiujian took up defensive positions as the fighting got underway, but with continuous heavy rain overhead, neither army could gain the upper hand as the battle stalled to a stalemate. Then after another 10 days of continuous rainfall, the Liao River started to rise, threatening both the Wei encampment and their supply lines. Now concerned for the safety of his teacher, Emperor Cao Rui would order Guan Qiujian to retreat back to Beiping for the time being, as Sima Yi and 40,000 additional troops were now on their way to reinforce him. Not knowing this, Gongsun Yuan mistakenly thought he had successfully beaten Wei, so he decided that the time was finally ripe to take that final step and declare himself as the King of Yen, as he would form his own imperial court and craft seals for all his vassals. But when news that Sima Yi had arrived in the north with additional reinforcement for a renewed attack, Gongsun Yuan began to panic, as he even sent an envoy to Sun Quan, hoping that the Emperor of Wu would look past his betrayal and send him troops to fend off Sima Yi, as after all, Wei was a common enemy now. Of course, when the Wu court received Gongsun Yuan's envoy, almost everyone, including Sun Quan, wanted to just simply execute the envoy to repay the favor to Gongsun Yuan. But General Yang Dao, who served under Sun Quan's eldest son, Sun Deng, argued in favor of sending troops to Gongsun Yuan, as he believed that Wu had everything to gain and nothing to lose by sending troops now. In his case, he stated that if Gongsun Yuan managed to beat back the Wei forces alone, then the gesture of sending the troops would earn Wu a reliable ally in the future against Wei. If Gongsun Yuan ends up in a stalemate with the Wei forces, then the Wu reinforcement could help turn that tide, beat back Wei, and earn Wu an ally. And even if Gongsun Yuan loses, the Wu forces could still pillage and plunder the Liaodong coastline and return with wealth. So after much consideration, Sun Quan agreed, as Yang Dao was given a fleet and troops as he would set off to Liaodong for this mission. But the sheer distance between the kingdom of Wu and the now kingdom of Yan meant Yang Dao's reinforcement would not arrive for another 3 months. In the meantime, it was up to Gongsun Yuan to defend himself against Sima Yi. So wisely relying on natural barriers, Gongsun Yuan decided to set up his first line of defense at the Liao River. While not as formidable as the Yangtze River in the south, the Liao River boasts one great defensive attribute, as the majority of the land west of it are marshland that get extremely muddy and difficult to traverse, especially in warmer months as the snow melts. This severely hampered the Wei cavalry forces and limited the number of crossings that the Wei force could use to attack Gongsun Yuan. On the other side, Sima Yi, despite his poor performance out west against Zhuge Liang, was a far better general and strategist when compared to the likes of Gongsun Yuan, as the Wei army made even more preparations for this assault, far exceeding Gongsun Yuan's wildest expectations. First, in addition to the Wuhuan tribes, Sima Yi reached out to the Xianbei chieftain Mo Hu Ba, whose tribe resided in Liaoxi, to attack Liaodong from the north. An interesting side note here is that Mo Hu Ba would eventually change his clan name to Mu Rong and adopt Han culture, as his line will become the famed imperial clans for the Xianbei kingdoms of Qian Yan, Hou Yan, Xi Yan, and Nan Yan, which made up 4 of the 16 kingdoms in the period prior to the Sui dynasty. Then, in addition to the help from the Xianbei tribes, Sima Yi also reached out to Gongsun Yuan's vassal in the kingdom of Gaogoli, who were tempted by the Wei court with bribes to send troops to attack Gongsun Yuan from the east. Now, even though this group only amounted to about 1,000 men, it was still a surprise factor that Gongsun Yuan did not expect. Additional Wei troops from the Qing province across the sea also will launch naval assaults targeting Lelang and Daifang commandery behind Gongsun Yuan's main defensive lines in the Liaodong commandery, while Sima Yi's main force would keep Gongsun Yuan occupied around Xiangping and the Liao River. Now, unlike the defensive tactics utilized by Sima Yi against Zhuge Liang in the northern expedition, Sima Yi would take all the initiative here against Gongsun Yuan. Knowing the enemy had dug in all across the east bank of the Liao River, Sima Yi first gave the appearance of amassing his troops at the south end of the river by setting up multiple encampments and fielding extra flags. And this drew Gongsun Yuan's general Bai Yan to station most of his troops at the south end of the river as well to match the Wei counterpart, which created an opening for Sima Yi's cavalry, which were ordered to take the long way around the marshland to reach a crossing far north of Gongsun Yuan's defensive lines to cross without being detected. Once across the Liao River, the cavalry unit followed Sima Yi's orders to charge directly for the city of Xiangping, where Gongsun Yuan was stationed at, as Sima Yi predicted that the city itself would be poorly defended, as Gongsun Yuan would have committed the majority of his troops to defend the entire course of the Liao River. This flanking maneuver surprised Gongsun Yuan, as he would immediately order Bai Yan to pull back his forces to Xiangping to protect the capital. But just as Bai Yan started his retreat, Sima Yi's main forces started to cross the Liao River. And now caught between the Wei forces, Bai Yan was forced to fight Sima Yi out in the open field, where the disorganized and inexperienced Yan forces were soundly defeated despite outnumbering Sima Yi's army. And this battered group would eventually make their way back to Xiangping to make their last stand alongside Gongsun Yuan, as Sima Yi would patiently set up a siege around the city, but offer no sign of assault, as his generals once again started to question their commander's resolve. And with that, our episode here comes to an end, as we'll be continuing next time with the downfall of Gongsun Yuan and his short-lived kingdom of Yan. So hopefully y'all have enjoyed this episode enough to hit that like button to help support the channel, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!